Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name is Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I welcome you to join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. You may also wish to join the conversation on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or access additional VIP content as a premium subscriber via Patreon. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get an early access to episodes, additional bonus content, and your chance to connect with my guests. To do so, simply visit patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. Let's talk near death. Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name is Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I welcome you to join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. You may also wish to join the conversation on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or access additional VIP content as a premium subscriber via Patreon. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get an early access to episodes, additional bonus content, and your chance to connect with my guests. To do so, simply visit patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. Let's talk near death.
I felt my own self like a cloud, colourful cloud coming out of myself. And then I saw myself in like a shadow, and it just sort of lifted away from me. And I saw this tunnel. It was like a vortex, which started off as like a black hole, and then it became bright and colourful, and then it became yellow, golden colour.
Today I'm talking with Sandy B Simmons, who has a huge focus on preconception to afterbirthing. Sandy had a stress-related NDE in 1999 and now focuses on letting go of what we don't need. Sandy's based in Melbourne, Australia. And Sandy, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I really appreciate you asking me on to your podcast.
So tell us a little bit about what was going on in your life and what brought about your near-death experience all the way back in 1999.
Okay, so this is in hindsight, obviously 20 odd years later. So the previous year, we had a hugely stressful time. We had started to realise in my marriage with my partner that our differences, and we are as different as chalk and cheese, we're starting to, interrupt our lives somewhat. And that got interrupted. So our interruption of what we were working on for ourselves got interrupted as all four parents, that's both our parents, were all sick at the same time.
Oh, no.
So we had both fathers in hospital with heart bypass in the same week. And then we had Greg's mum was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and my mum had her feet fused from really bad arthritis. And that just means that they break them and they put pins in, and so then you flip-flop and you can't move your feet very well. So this all happened in the matter of, 6 weeks. Both fathers in hospital, and then having Greg's mum diagnosed, etc. And my mum having her operations where she couldn't walk. Had 2 teenagers, was working and studying.
Oh, wow. So quite busy then.
So it was really over the top. And we don't have much family support in Melbourne. I'm actually from England. My sister lives in Sydney, and my husband's brother lives in Cairns. So it was down to us to sort of run around and do everything and try and be in 4 hospitals all at the same time, etc., and work. So it took its toll. We were absolutely exhausted by the end of the year. Then Greg's mum passed away in the January, and by Easter we had decided to separate because it was just all too much. So he went off to live with his dad. Now, I was left on my own to look after the kids. He wasn't coping very well with anything much going on in his life at that time. And I muddled and puddled through life for the next few months. I wasn't what I call emotionally stable. I was all over the place, really, with so much going on. And I had decided that I would do a cleanse. Now, I'm a natural practitioner and I've done fasting for 25 years. I'd already done it, actually 35 years, because I'd already been doing it for about 10 years when I had the near-death experience. So I'd done a fast, and I'd been doing lots of herbal baths, water therapies, all sorts of things to get myself feeling much better. And I had some news from the UK about a couple of other people that have passed away, and it seemed to trigger like I just can't do this life anymore. Everything really got on top of me. And what I have to say is that I take everything on. I'm one of those, you could call me an empath if you like. I gather everything to me, and I'm, in hindsight, find that I really don't let go of things, even though in my own mind I think I do. So taking its toll, I was in bed, not well, nothing specific, but just really exhausted. And then I'm in bed one day and I just said, look, I just can't even get up. Just take me. I just can't do this life anymore. So I had a few little kidney issues, so that's related to emotions in Chinese medicine, because I use that as well. So I sort of basically knew what was happening, but it was just too much. And I just said, no, that's it. Take me away. So I got my wish. And all of a sudden, I felt my own self, if I can call it that, like a cloud, colourful cloud coming out of myself. And then I saw myself in like a shadow, I call it. And it just sort of lifted away from me. And then all of a sudden I saw this tunnel. It was like a vortex. It started to change and form a larger, which started off as like a black hole, and then it became bright and colourful, and then it became yellow, golden colour. And I suddenly felt more relaxed than I had ever done for many, many years. I was just like, oh. I didn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to worry about my body. And I was just light and easy and I can't say the word happy, but relieved, that real relief of just feeling so this black hole, as I was saying, turned into this beautiful golden yellow lining inside. And I was suddenly, it was like I was sucked up. I was drawn up into this vortex, and I'm changing into this really colourful ball of light. And I could feel it. And I was just turning, but I was going faster and faster and faster and faster, and up and up and up and up and up. And then I went that way, and then I went that way, and it was sort of turning corners, and then I was spinning and doing all sorts of things, and it seemed to go on for a very long time. I can't tell you for how long. And slowly it got to the point where I started to see all what was going on in my past life. I saw people, I saw, my family, and lastly I saw my children. And, you know, I'm sort of saying, oh, it's all okay, I'm fine, and you know, you'll be all right, and having this conversation with them, which was a bit bizarre. And then the yellow golden light sort of changed into a bright white light, and I came to what seemed like a standstill, like I was just floating. And I'm thinking, right, okay, where am I? I wonder if this is heaven or what I was supposed to, you know, not sure about what's going on. And it was all just really, really hazy. I couldn't really see anything around me because I'm just a spirit and it doesn't have eyes and a body or anything. So it's more like using my senses, which must be like a seventh sense that we don't know about.
Yeah.
So I sensed another spirit, call it spirit, near me, and telepathically we were talking. And I said, what are you doing here? And I'm going, well, I'm here for a rest. I've had enough of that down there. I'm up here for a rest. I don't know what's next, but I'm just feeling so much better. So this other spirit says to me, well, there's no room for you here. And I said, well, where can I go? So, there isn't anywhere else for you to go. There is no room for you here, and it's not your time to be here. And I said, oh, can't I just stay for a bit, you know, and have a bit of a rest? We're having this really, really interesting conversation. And I said, no, sorry, it's no space for you yet. It's not your time. And had to impress that on me 2 or 3 times. And I'm going, okay, so what do I do next? I said, and he said, you need to go back and finish what you started. And I said, well, I'm thinking as a spirit would, and said, well, I really don't know what that is. I don't know why I'm even down there on earth. You know, what's my purpose for being there? And there was a laugh that came back and said, you know. And I said, no, I have no idea. I was getting really quiet. I wasn't stressed, but I'm going, I'm in the dark here. I really have no idea. So this other spirit kept chatting to me and saying, you do know, it's in front of you, you know, and giving me a few hints and everything. And suddenly it dawned on me about what I needed to come back and complete. So after that conversation, it was like the other spirit floated away and I'm just there floating away. And all of a sudden, it was like, I'm going to say it was like a push, but it wasn't really a push because you can't push a spirit. Maybe it was a little bit like being sucked slowly back down this tunnel. And so the whole reverse of what had happened going up there, it was like reliving the whole thing and going back down. But with that bit of wisdom, that what I was here to do. So my wisdom that I gained from it was I needed to impart the information that I had worked with for a long time and write books and really get into my natural therapies and work with this master that I had come across who knew things from all different sources of natural therapies from around the world. And just to be. That was the other thing that I got. I had to just be me, not pretend to be anybody else or follow anything else, but just take all that knowledge and get it out into the world and just be me. That's the wisdom I came back with. So down, absolute reverse, became a colourful, beautiful light. And then I saw myself just floating back into me. And I can remember sitting upright like this in bed going, oh my God, what just happened? And then flying, sort of falling back onto the pillow and absolutely exhausted as I was before. And I thought, oh, I don't know what to do. I I can't be here. I can't be in this house. You know, what am I going to do? So I'm busily thinking about where I could go, what I needed to do. And I ended up ringing the guy that I'd been working with, the one that the other spirit was talking to me about. And he knew instantly what had been going on, being his intuitive self. And he said, you just need to get out of that house, and it's going to take you a while now to recover. I thought, okay. And I said, well, everyone's going to want to send me off to hospital. And he said, no, don't. Well, and I said, but I don't want to go. I don't want to go. It's to give you a little bit of background, I'm really sensitive to anything that I take in my mouth, even natural therapies, foods, everything. Always have been. And so the last thing I wanted to do was have anything foreign put in my body. So he said, well, you need to get out of that house, and I don't know how you're going to do it, he said, but it will come to you. So I finished that conversation, and about half an hour later I thought, okay, I can go to stay at a colleague's place who worked with us in the clinic. So I rang another friend. I had to do all this. I wasn't feeling great. And I'm on this phone saying to my husband, you have to come home and look after the kids because I have to leave and go. I've just not really been well, and I really have to go and just have a few weeks to sort myself out, was what I told him. So he was a bit surprised, but anyway, he came back home, and then I had to say goodbye to the kids. I got another friend to pick me up and drive me to this place because I couldn't actually raise this person who I was going to stay with, but I knew I had to go and stay there.
Right.
Absolutely bizarre. Now, to backtrack a little bit, because we'd been separated now for almost a year, I had been seeing this person at the clinic. We had set up a friendship, and then the last few weeks we'd sort of got into a relationship. So I had a key. So I just let myself into this place and send another text saying, you know, like I'm at your place, you know, etc. Hope it's okay for me to stay for a little bit. And then I completely collapsed. I was in bed, I would say, for at least 3 weeks. I didn't even leave the bed. I had to have help to go to the toilet. There was part of me, it was like I was split down the middle. Part of me knew I was going to be absolutely fine. And the other part sweated and burnt and sweated and burnt and sweated and burnt.
Yeah.
And I had really high temperatures, those that possibly I would have been told that, you know, I'm going to die if I was in hospital or anything, and they would have stopped that process. And I knew that process couldn't be stopped. It was me burning off. I never really believed much in previous lives, but I do now, because there was so much that came to me and I was just letting it go, burning off. So I was very well looked after by this new partner that came on to be my partner for another 10 years. And the guy that we worked with. And they looked after me brilliantly. I did lose a lot of weight. I ended up with kidney gravel, not kidney stones. It's still fairly painful, but it was just a lot of stuff of just letting go. And after the 3 weeks and I started to come good, it took me probably another 3 weeks before I was up and around and, you know, able to participate in life again and catch up with my children, which was the worst thing. I was talking to them on the phone, but I hadn't seen them. So, you know, they're young teenagers, so they obviously miss their mum and I miss them. So, you know, it was a huge process. It's not something I have met one other person where something similar happened to them, and they also a natural therapist, and they allowed it to progress. But I have to say that most people and family and whoever was around them would have probably sent them off to hospital. But I was just in the right space at the right time with the right people who understood what was going on and allowed it to be. So, and they had complete faith that I would be okay. It's a very fine line that you're working with in this space, and I have gone on to help a couple of other people since then when who've been in similar situations. But they knew they were going to be okay, and they wanted someone to believe that they would be okay. They just needed to do what they needed to do. And so when I say that the gold or the treasure, whatever I came back with, still keeps growing. And I'm put in situations sometimes where I know people wouldn't necessarily know. They're unusual situations, but they are situations that I'm able to cope with, I guess, because I feel like I've already died, already been to heaven, if we can call it that. None of us really know what that is. But I got the gold that I needed to live my life and to live it fully. And for that to happen to anybody is just an amazing thing. It just gives you so much hope and clarity for why you're here on earth and what your purpose is. And it's really just shining your light or just being there for others. Okay, if it's only one other person in your life, it doesn't matter. It doesn't got to be thousands or millions or anything, but it's your purpose for being here is to hold the space for those people that want to do things maybe differently. Yeah. So then that comes into my work with preconception and, through to after birthing, is holding that space for women who really know in here what they would love to do, but there's no one around them that's really understanding that, or they're in fear. Not the women, but the people around them are in fear and they want them to do other things. So it's just holding that sacred space for them. And, I'm not the practitioner that will go through everything with them. They'll have different practitioners coming in, obviously, because I'm not a be-all, do-all person, but I'm holding the space for them and that sounding board for them to say, it's okay, how are we going, da-da-da-da, as walking alongside them. So that's my story.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy. That is, there's so much in that. It's amazing. There's one thing that you said right early on that really stuck out to me, and you said that you're what you called an empath and that you felt a lot and you carried a lot of feelings and emotions. Have you always been like that, or is that something that you got as part of your experience?
No, I believe I was like it as a child. I could I call it an empath as a child? I'm not sure. But as a child, I could see many, many things. And like lots of people in their stories, I got shut down. My mother was fearful of absolutely everything. And she was brought up by nuns, Catholic nuns, and was fearful of a bobby pin going in her hair, So as her daughter's saying things like, there's a big cloud around someone's throat, they're not well, and, all sorts of things I would come out with, and she just said, you can't say that.
Oh, okay.
And
So it was shut down.
Slowly. I still saw them, but I didn't say anything.
Yeah.
So, and I think when you don't say anything, you hold on to things.
Yeah.
And I think that's how my life played out. I saw so many things and I thought, I can't say that. I can't say that to that person. And by saying it, it's that circular thing where you see it and you say it to the person and energy flows. But if it's not allowed to flow, it stays inside. And so I have a really good understanding of myself now where I went on to have all sorts of health issues like gut issues, acne, really bad acne, to irritable, then it went into really bad irritable bowel, and then I was put on tetracycline for 7 years because they thought that would help my acne, but that made my gut worse. And all the time, I'm still not saying anything, still not actually voicing what it is that I'm seeing that possibly could help people. So this went on, and I had all sorts of other health issues. I've lost track now because nothing that ever put me into hospital as such, but it was just exhaustion. You know, I would just fall in a heap, and it would take weeks to recover and up again, and this sort of, you know, flowed through my life until I was about 40 when I met this alternative practitioner from overseas, and he's a master with all sorts, with so many different things under his belt from around the world that he's studied. And I took me 2 years to get back on my feet, what I call really back on my feet.
That's a really long time though, isn't it?
It's a long time, and I've done a lot of work, and I do know that I was just determined. I was just determined that, you know, I had a near-death experience. It's not my time to go, but I'm going to get as well as I can be. And I continue to do that. And it's work. And I do know that the average person doesn't like to do that.
Yeah.
But my challenge to me and to other people when they do come to me is to say it's work, it's continual work on yourself. You don't just do one thing and hope, well, that's all right for the rest of my life. It's, you know, things come to you, you've got to work on them and let them go. Come to you, work them and let them go. Work through it. Allow the process to happen. Don't stop it.
Do you think that our life can end if we haven't finished that process? Because that sounds like a very ongoing process, doesn't it?
It is, but that's what life's about. We're learning about ourselves all the time. We're learning how to express ourselves. And unfortunately, we can be the best parents ever. We all have fabulous intentions, but because of the way society has made us, we tend to carry on some of those attributes. And this is what I'm endeavouring to get people to look at before they have children, or they don't even have to have children because it's helpful for themselves too, is to really look at your values and you know, what are you taking with you? What are you carrying that you really don't want to, but you think you have to? All of those things, let's lighten the load, because I see, you know, the family tree. I mean, you can see everybody behind me, or you may not be able to, that's gone before me. And then there's just me at the end of it. Imagine there's thousands, millions, I don't know how many since the beginning of time. And you just go, okay, so if they weren't all there, I wouldn't be here. Okay, and then we've got, from this end, I'm looking out at children and grandchildren now and what's going to come from me. And you start to get a completely different perspective on everything, and you just go, so what have I taken on from all of these people in their lives that isn't me? It's not needed in my life now, you know. Then there's the other layer, if you believe in past lives, what past lives have I brought in with me? You know, you've got layers and layers. And so to me, it's a real trying to have an understanding about where you've come from. You're here, present now in this life. What do I bring with me that will get me through this life? Not to take on everything from before, you know. I can go into everything a lot deeper than that. I can say things like, if we are what we attract. Okay, so if we've got something that we're holding on to that we really don't want, or we don't even know is there. And I have to say that sometimes you really don't know that you're carrying something, but someone else can see it and give you that bit of insight. Then you're going to attract something. You know, it's like, say, for instance, recently I had a woman who couldn't get pregnant. Now, we went through her bloodline, and her bloodline, it was very similar. Women couldn't get pregnant. They were barren, they were this, they were that, and she went back a few generations. And I said, so what is it that you've taken on that you don't need? That's their lives. It's not your life. You're here now, and you can change that. So that's what we did a lot of work on. So it's really multi-layered. And so when you talk about there's work to do, yes, there is. There's work on yourself mainly, as well as having to survive in this world, or a bit more than survive, be up here. But that's life. That is life, and that is living. Because, you know, you probably come across people and there's no right and wrong. I don't have any judgment, because people are all at different stages in their lives, or their, you know, reincarnations, or whatever you want to call it. So there's no judgment place. But if somebody really understands that they have to do something, and it's like a burning desire, and they want to let a process happen, or they want to let go, then I'm there for them. So
that's great.
Yeah.
I love how you bring in the spiritual element, the physical element, the practical element. It's got so many layers to it, hasn't it? It's so different. Yeah. So I'd love to go back to your experience itself.
Sure.
When you were traveling up this tunnel, and you were saying it was turning into this beautiful yellowy golden light that was ahead of you and surrounding you, you talked about the little lights that were flying around, and how you had become one of these lights that was able to fly around as well. Were the other lights people that you recognized, or what were they? Were they beings? Were they?
Yeah, so interesting. It was like in reverse, because when I started going up the tunnel, I was this beam of light, or little spirit, and I saw others, and then faces would come to me like this in front of me, and they were people I'd known who had passed, so family and friends, etc. So they were sort of felt people I recognised were close to me. There were others around as well who I really didn't know who they were, but there was a lot of them with me, if that makes sense. And it was just like, to start off with, I didn't recognise many, and then I got to recognise them as family and friends that have passed. And then I seemed to come into the present, which was a little weird, but going up this way. And that's when I saw, lastly, my children, my sister, my children, and then that was the last I saw. And then I ended up in the other space. So in hindsight, when I've looked at it, I've gone, well, not that there's a right and wrong, but I thought it would have been the other way around. But that's just what happened. So yeah.
And so you talked about how you got to see your mission, I suppose you call it, and you said you were physically looking and watching this. Was this around you? Were you looking at like some kind of screen, or how did this play out?
Yeah, well, I'm up here in this, I'm going to say cloud, because it was just like pea soup. You know, you really couldn't see anything, because I didn't have eyes. So it's like I had no eyes. I was using a sense. So I couldn't feel, I couldn't see, I couldn't have all the usual senses that I had. And then was sort of talking telepathically. Yeah, so there was I had no mouth to speak with or anything. So that's why I call it the seventh sense, because we've got intuition, which is our sixth sense, but this was sort of beyond that. Yeah. So it's really hard to put into words, but I didn't sense any other beings or lights around me at all. It was just me there and this other presence that was telepathically talking to me.
You got to this point and you said that you were so light, and you said you'd never felt that relaxed ever in your life. Were you aware that you weren't connected to your body? Were you aware that you potentially did? What was going through your mind at that point?
I think it was that separation sort of thing that was happening. And I started to feel really light and then unburdened, and then like, this is cool. I don't have to worry about my body anymore, or, you know, my physicalness.
Yeah.
And even the mental aspect, you know, the anguish and all that sort of thing that goes in your mind, and, you know, stress, etc. That had gone too. So I'm believing that I was just ended up being the spirit or the soul, you know, part of me was just separating. And it was a bit of, didn't just happen like that. It was sort of like this progression. And seeing myself, and then seeing my form change and get into this colourful light, and then there's more of a, like a little bouncing around white light. Call a spirit or something. So yeah.
And then when you got told that there's no place for you there, and you're saying, but I just want to have a rest, I've come here for a rest, how did that feel when you realised that you had to go back to your body?
I know that I asked, I'm here for a rest, and I was quite adamant that I was there for a rest. I said it a few times, and there was a lot of, or said it all telepathically, and I can remember the other voice or telepathically saying to me, well, I'm sorry, but you can't. You know, this went on for a while, and I think as the conversation went on, I started to realise, oh, right, okay, there's no space for me. It's not my time. Take a big, deep breath, you know, and then asking, what did I have to go back for and all. So it seemed to go on for a long time. I think I just accepted it, because we read a lot of things, or I've talked to a lot of people about how they say that we have a contract. We make a contract to come here.
Do you believe that?
Now I have an idea that possibly we do. Not a written contract as we would do down here, but there's some sort of mission, like you said before, that we are here to do. And, you know, a lot of people talk about when you are birthed that you tend to forget everything. I think that's changing, because I believe that there's some younger folk that I've had lots of conversations with seem to remember things.
Oh, definitely.
Now, is that actually changing or not? I can't tell you. There's nothing out there to tell us that. But I know from my own experience, when I was a child, I was an only child till I was 10. I had to amuse myself a lot. And whether that was my intuition or my imagination or whatever, but I could see lots of things. You know, I could see auras, but I just thought everybody saw them.
Exactly.
I just thought that was normal. I just wasn't thinking of it being anything that anybody else couldn't see. And so I'm starting to come around to the thought that I believe everybody has this. It's not just unique to me. It's just that we are born into such extreme circumstances these days that it just goes a lot of the time, or you're shut down, or, you know, many, many different ways things happen. And then it's for us to find ourselves. And you can sort of see that in some of the old texts and that you read, and this is what it is to be human and to learn about yourself. But I think it's speeding up, and I think as more parents become aware before they become parents, they can help their own child and they can understand their child, I think we will then start to progress, is probably not the right word, evolve more into how humanity is meant to evolve, because I believe we've got quite stagnant.
I would agree with you there.
Yeah. And so to actually move beyond that, we actually need to really look at ourselves. It's about looking at yourself and going, okay, what's actually happening? Not what's happening out in the world, because you don't have a lot of control over that, but you have control over what you think, what you feel, and what you would love in your life. And what is it that you remember? What is it that you would, you do know?
I think it's so interesting that you've brought it back to the pre-birth, because more and more I'm hearing stories of people who've got pre-birth memories who can remember either being born or, like you say, having that mission or something instilled in them before they've come here, and whether that's connected to their contract or, there's so many possibilities and ways that this can go. But more and more I'm hearing of people with these memories, and you're right, if we can connect to ourself, our true self, why we're here, our mission, our purpose, so much more is available to us and to everybody. So you talked about how when you were a child that you would see things and you thought it was quite normal. Well, actually you didn't even realize that potentially other people wouldn't see things or have these experiences. Are they any stronger, or do you develop any new senses or abilities through your NDE?
I did to begin with. I was extremely sensitive, and I had to be very careful where I was, because it would take me down again, because I was still recovering. I'm probably the strongest now that I've ever been, because it's like I have an understanding, and I go, right, okay, I can feel things behind me, around me, walk into a room. A lot of people say when they walk in a room they can tell the mood straight away.
Yeah.
Run away. I guess from the near-death experience, I've learned not to run away from things, because I'm there for a reason. I wouldn't be going there if there wasn't something I wasn't needed to be there.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah? I mean, I'm not going to put myself in complete danger, but, if someone's having an argument or something, we immediately sort of retract and retreat. And sometimes, just to give you an example, if there's a big argument, I might enter the room, because I'm going there, and rather than run away, I'll just be present in the corner. And I've learnt to do that. That's from the near-death experience, not to run away. And like I said, if anyone's really unwell, I'll sit with them and go through lots of different experiences. Have they got stronger? I think they've become slightly different. I was always able to see inside people's bodies.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I see clouds and colours, a little bit like auras around that people see outside, but I can see colours inside, and then they tell me, just gives me information.
So could you tell if somebody was unwell, or what type of information?
I'll give you an example. When I was a child, I saw this really red area across my auntie's neck. And the information that it gave to me, I mean, I was probably 7, I think, at the time, 7 or 8. The information I got was that she had a problem with her thyroid. I didn't even know what a thyroid was.
Yeah, sure. Not at that age.
It just sort of came out. And Mum says to me, can't say things like that. I said, but it's not right. Something's not right. I can remember saying something. And I said, and her eyes are popping out of her head, which is a symptom of thyroid anyway. And because I said about the eyes, Mum didn't say anything else, but she must have said something. and re-looked at her sister and thought, yeah, oh, yeah, they do. You know, something doesn't look quite right. Maybe I should go to the doctors. It wasn't because of this bit. It was because I'd said about the eyes popping out, because she could visually see that herself. So that's how it sort of works for me as a child. Now I have developed past that. I don't just let things out as you do as a child. So, you know, I can give people information about different things going on within their body. And yeah, so that part has developed. My senses have developed, I have to say that. You know, just my intuition's obviously developed as I've gotten older, and I see auras, but I can see it around absolutely everything. But you see, to me, that's normal.
So you've always been able to see the auras?
I've always been able to see them, even if it's just a little white shimmering one around trees and things like that. And then it becomes colourful when I'm getting information and I need to say something. So that's sort of how it works.
How did you work that out, that when it became colourful, that was because you had information?
Well, I think I had a few experiences like the red across here with my auntie. And how did I know? I don't know how I know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was just, I think it's because it's colourful, it draws your attention to it, and then it's sort of speaking to you and saying, you know, this is what's happening. Whereas an ordinary aura, you know, and it's got something to say to you, you're not drawn towards it. Yeah.
Do you think that your NDE was always going to happen, or do you think it was a result of the stress that you allowed your body to go through and the situation that you allowed yourself to be in?
Yeah. Throughout my life, I haven't had near-death experiences, but I've had a lot of experiences, extrasensory experiences of beings talking to me.
Yeah.
I can't see, etc. I would say that having the extra stress, it had to get to that deep state and that stage to lift me out, to say, hey, this is serious. I probably wasn't listening to myself enough, and as we all do, it's human nature to go discount things or say, well, I can't do that because, you know, I've got to fit into life, or this is what I'm doing, you know. I don't want to listen to that. So I think I'd done that for probably about 7 or 8 years, and I think the culmination of all the stress and the exhaustion, just on top of it all, was just too much. So was it ever always going to happen? I don't know if it was always going to happen, if I'd taken a slightly different track and listened to myself, and maybe met the people who helped me through it beforehand. Is an easy thing to say. Perhaps it was supposed to happen, so I met them and I went through it, and perhaps it was all already set in motion from when I was born or before I was born. I don't know.
So do you see your NDE as a bit of a wake-up call?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of wake-up calls in my life, but that was the biggest one.
Yeah. It's amazing. You've shared so much with us, and you've shared quite a lot of knowledge as well, things that you've learnt through your experience, experiences, I should say. If there was one key thing that's come out of everything since your NDE, what would that be?
Listen to myself. Listen to the small voice within, and don't discount it. Take time, that quiet time every day, to just listen. Yeah.
I love it. That is so good. Sandy B Simmons, thank you so much for coming on. it's been amazing. And I think you're so right about how we need to let go of the things that we no longer need, how we need to take that time, connect with ourselves, connect with our higher being, our source, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, it's just beautiful. I've learned so much through your conversation. I love the way that you just communicate very clearly what happened, what you saw, and more than that, what you've learned from it. So Sandy, thank you.
It's all right. Thank you. My pleasure.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.